She has some pipes.
That's
it's
exciting.
Really, so you know, they say it skips a gym. My parents were opera
I was going to say your parents were
I cannot sing at all. My parents were singers, but that.
Sandra Bullock's journey through love has been marked by highs and lows, moments of joy, and deep challenges. It all began when she fell for Jesse James, a television personality and motorcycle enthusiast, whose rebellious image contrasted with Sandra's own glamorous Hollywood persona. To many, this relationship was surprising, especially considering that fans often speculated that Keanu Reeves, her frequent co-star, seemed like a more natural match. Despite the initial doubts, Sandra and Jesse's love story unfolded, leading to their marriage in 2005. However, their union was not destined to last. After 5 years of marriage, Sandra and Jesse's relationship took a devastating turn when allegations of infidelity against Jesse surfaced, leading to their eventual divorce in 2010. This chapter in Sandra's life was not only painful due to the dissolution of her marriage, but also because it coincided with her dealing with terrifying personal threats. On multiple occasions, Sandra endured the horrifying experience of stalkers breaking into her home. She was forced to hide and call 911 for help, adding to the emotional strain of this period. In the midst of these terrifying incidents, Jesse was there to support and protect her, offering a sense of comfort as she navigated these traumatic events. Though their relationship ended in heartbreak, Sandra's connection to Jesse was undeniably deep during their time together. For a while, he was her rock in a world that seemed to be falling apart around her. But as the years passed, Sandra moved on, both personally and professionally, showing her remarkable resilience. Yet years after her split from Jesse, Sandra shocked the world by making a surprising confession that there was another man who had been the true love of her life. Naturally, this revelation sparked speculation. Was it Keanu Reeves, with whom she shared undeniable on-screen chemistry in films like Speed and The Lake House? Or was it someone entirely unexpected? Sandra's admission left many fans wondering if the man she was referring to had been in her life all along, perhaps even someone the public had overlooked. While Sandra kept the identity of her true love a mystery for some time, her statement drew attention to the complex and private nature of her personal relationships. It reminded people that despite her fame, Sandra, like everyone else, has had her share of heartbreaks and deep emotional connections. At 59, she hinted that this man had played a significant role in her life, but remained discreet about whether this love was someone from her past or a current figure in her life. Amidst the speculation, it's important to remember the unique bond she shared with Jesse. Their relationship, though unconventional, had a meaningful beginning. Sandra first crossed paths with Jesse in 2003 thanks to her son, Louis. Louis, a young boy at the time, had a fascination with motorcycles and had begged his mother to visit the West Coast Choppers headquarters in Long Beach, owned by Jesse James. Sandra agreed to the visit, not expecting that this seemingly innocent outing would change the course of her love life. During their visit, Jesse provided a private tour of his motorcycle shop. While Louis was enamored by the experience, Jesse found himself equally captivated by Sandra, though Sandra didn't reciprocate Jesse's feelings. Right away, initially viewing him as nothing more than a motorcycle enthusiast, Jesse's persistence eventually won her over. He contacted her office that same day, eager to pursue a connection before anyone else could. What began as a simple tour of motorcycles eventually evolved into a romance that caught many by surprise. As time passed, Jesse and Sandra's bond deepened, leading to their marriage. But as with many love stories, theirs was not without its challenges, and the infidelity that ended their relationship marked a painful chapter for Sandra. Still, her journey through love remains a testament to her strength and her ability to navigate both joy and heartache with grace. Though the identity of the man she considers her true love may still remain unclear, Sandra's experiences remind us that love is rarely simple. For Sandra, the path to finding it has been one filled with twists and turns, but it has ultimately made her the resilient woman she is today. When James first called Sandra's office, he was met with a firm, albeit polite barrier. Sandra's assistant conveyed her message. "Don't give that man my number. Give him my email instead, and I'll politely say I'm unavailable." This was Sandra's usual way of handling men whose intentions felt disingenuous. She had faced such situations numerous times before and had grown adept at using distance as her shield. For most men, this was the end of the road. But James was unlike most men. Instead of backing off, he took this as a challenge. He wasn't deterred by her boundaries, but rather intrigued by them. James was persistent, resourceful, and relentless in his pursuit. Somehow, he managed to get hold of Sandra's personal number, despite her best efforts to maintain her privacy. At this point, most people would expect Sandra to be furious, but instead, she found herself curious about this man who refused to be easily dismissed. Their conversations began as sporadic and somewhat formal, but as they continued to talk, a strange chemistry developed. The more they interacted, the more Sandra felt drawn to James's tenacity and charm. Despite being worlds apart, Sandra, a celebrated Hollywood star, and James with his bad boy image, their differences only seemed to pull them closer together. What had begun as a casual exchange soon morphed into deeper, more meaningful conversations. James, who might have easily leaned into his well-known rebellious persona, surprised Sandra by focusing less on himself and more on her dreams, her passions, her fears. It became less about the man who wouldn't give up and more about the unexpected connection that was forming between them. James had a knack for getting Sandra to open up in ways that surprised even her. What started as a game of 20 questions evolved into what Sandra would later describe as a courtship of letters. This exchange of thoughts and feelings bridged the gap between their seemingly opposing worlds. To the public, their relationship seemed improbable. A Hollywood star falling for a man with a checkered past, how could it possibly work? Yet Sandra found herself attracted to James's raw honesty and unfiltered personality. He wasn't trying to impress her with Hollywood glitz or fame. Instead, he was real, and that authenticity was what drew Sandra in. Their love story, however, was not without its challenges. Sandra had always been wary of relationships, particularly with men whose intentions felt insincere. Her previous experiences with stalkers and obsessive fans had taught her to be guarded. Despite this, James slowly dismantled those walls, revealing a vulnerable side to Sandra that few had seen. Their relationship blossomed into something neither had anticipated: a deep, spiritual connection that defied the superficial nature of their public personas. In interviews years later, Sandra would reflect on the early days of their relationship with fondness, saying, "I wasn't looking for anything like this, but somehow James came into my life at just the right moment. He wasn't the person I thought I needed, but he was the person I ended up wanting." She credited James with helping her grow emotionally and spiritually, noting that his persistence and patience taught her to see love in a new way. James, too, would later admit that his first impression of Sandra was entirely wrong. "I thought she was just another Hollywood snob," he said candidly, "but after talking to her for a few minutes, I realized she was nothing like that. She was warm, kind, and real." Yet despite the strong bond they shared, something went wrong along the way. In a moment of raw honesty, Sandra later confessed that her heart had always belonged to someone else, a man from her past who she described as her true love. This revelation was shocking, not just to James, but to those who had followed their love story with fascination. What had seemed like a fairy tale, two people from opposite worlds finding common ground, was, in the end, a fleeting chapter in Sandra's life. The turning point came during one of the most harrowing experiences of Sandra's life: a terrifying home invasion in 2014. The ordeal began early in the morning on June 8th, when Sandra was abruptly woken by the sound of an intruder breaking into her Los Angeles home. Sandra had already experienced the dark side of fame, dealing with obsessive fans who had crossed the line on multiple occasions. However, this particular incident was far more chilling than anything she had faced before. At around 6:30 a.m., Sandra quickly realized that she wasn't alone in her house. Overcome with fear but acting on instinct, she quietly slipped behind a secure door in her closet and locked herself inside. Heart pounding, she managed to call 911 and whisper to the emergency operator about the intruder's presence. Her husband, Jesse James, who had been a source of comfort and security throughout their marriage, was not at the house during the break-in. Although he had always stood by her in the past, particularly during previous stalking incidents, this time, Sandra was alone. The police arrived swiftly, arresting the intruder before any harm could be done, But the incident left Sandra shaken to her core. Despite the strength she had shown in the face of danger, the emotional toll of the break-in and the constant fear of being targeted by obsessive fans weighed heavily on Sandra. It was a stark reminder of the risks that came with her fame and the price she paid for living her life in the spotlight. In the end, Sandra and James's relationship, while built on mutual admiration and emotional connection, could not withstand the pressures of their respective worlds. For 15 agonizing minutes, Sandra remained hidden in her closet, clutching her phone, praying desperately that the police would arrive before the intruder discovered her. Every second stretched painfully long, the ticking of the clock amplifying her fear. Her breath was shallow, her heart pounding so violently that she was certain it would give her away. The 911 operator's calm voice was the only thing keeping her tethered to reality, guiding her through the storm of terror that raged inside her. Then finally, the voice on the other end of the line said, "There's an officer pulling up now. Do not go outside. They're entering the house." Relief surged through Sandra like a wave. She acknowledged hearing the officer's footsteps entering and whispered a tearful "thank you" to the operator, overwhelmed with gratitude for their patience and guidance during what felt like an eternity. But even as she heard the commotion of the officers securing the house, her fear didn't completely subside. It had burrowed deep inside her, making her question if she would ever feel safe again. The intruder, who had broken into Sandra Bullock's home, was quickly apprehended and identified as Joshua James Corbett, an obsessive fan with a long history of mental health issues. As the police led him away from her house, Corbett mumbled repeatedly, "I'm sorry, please don't press charges." But those words held no comfort for Sandra. The man who had violated the sanctity of her home and her sense of security could not simply walk away with an apology. Outside her residence, police officers surrounded the area, turning her once quiet sanctuary into a scene of chaos. Journalists and curious onlookers gathered, eager to uncover the details of the horrifying event. Following the terrifying break-in, Sandra took swift legal action, obtaining a restraining order against Corbett. However, even with the legal protection, the emotional scars left behind by that night were harder to heal. In the months that followed, Sandra tried to move on, to reclaim a sense of normalcy. But she couldn't forget the looming threat that had entered her life. Thoughts of "what if" plagued her mind, especially when it came to her son, Louis. He had been away that night, and Sandra couldn't stop herself from replaying the horrifying thought of what might have happened if he had been home. "It was the one night Louis wasn't with me," she said later in an interview, her voice heavy with emotion. The thought haunted her. Had Corbett known her son wouldn't be there? Was it just a coincidence? Or had there been something more sinister at play? Even though Louis had been spared from the trauma, Sandra couldn't shake the guilt. She had always been protective of him, and knowing that her home, a place that was supposed to be safe, had been breached, filled her with dread. Still, in her darkest moments, Sandra found solace in her husband, Jesse James, whose unwavering support became a lifeline. He stood by her side, offering reassurance and comfort when she needed it most. But the nightmare didn't end with Corbett's arrest. A few years later, in 2014, Joshua James Corbett made headlines again, this time for a tragic and fatal encounter with the police. After a prolonged standoff at his home in La Crescenta, Los Angeles County, Corbett died by suicide. The 42-year-old was found with self-inflicted injuries caused by a sharp object, with no signs of gunfire at the scene. The SWAT team, prepared to confront him, had instead been met with the grim sight of his lifeless body. Corbett's death stirred up a whirlwind of emotions for Sandra. While she had no contact with him following the restraining order, the closure she had hoped for felt bittersweet. The man who had terrorized her was gone, but so too was the opportunity for him to seek help and accountability. Meanwhile, Sandra did her best to continue with her life, finding moments of joy despite the lingering trauma. That night, when Corbett had broken into her home, stood in stark contrast to the happiness she had felt just hours before. She had been in high spirits after receiving a heartfelt compliment from her longtime friend and colleague, Keanu Reeves. Reeves, a beloved figure in her life, had told her earlier, "Sandra, you are one of a kind," words that had left her glowing with appreciation and pride. Their friendship, which had blossomed after their on-screen chemistry in the hit movie Speed, was a constant source of support for Sandra. Keanu had always been there for her, both personally and professionally, and their bond had often been a subject of fascination for fans and the media alike. At an awards show not long after the break-in, Keanu took to the stage to deliver a tribute to Sandra. His words were filled with admiration, praising her for the light she brought into the world. "Sandra, your heart, your soul, your light, your talent that you share with all of us is amazing, wonderful, and extraordinary," he said, his voice filled with warmth. "You are one of a kind," he repeated, and the crowd erupted in applause as Sandra blushed with embarrassment and joy. Their relationship was one that fans had speculated about for years. Many believed they were the perfect couple, their chemistry undeniable on and off the screen. And while their friendship had remained just that, a friendship, Sandra later confessed that she had harbored a crush on Keanu for as long as she could remember. The two had shared intimate moments during filming, with Keanu once stealing a kiss behind the scenes, fueling rumors that there might be more between them. Keanu, for his part, also admitted to having a secret crush on Sandra, though he too had never acted on his feelings. Despite their mutual attraction, both had decided to keep their emotions hidden, choosing to remain close friends rather than risk complicating their relationship. In the end, they each found love with other partners. But the what-if of their relationship remained a tantalizing mystery for fans, and perhaps for them as well. As Sandra continued to heal from the trauma of the break-in, her friendship with Keanu remained a bright spot in her life. It was a reminder that even in her darkest moments, there were people who loved and supported her, who saw her for who she truly was: strong, resilient, and one of a kind. The truth about Sandra Bullock and Keanu Reeves' mutual admiration first surfaced during interviews on The Ellen DeGeneres Show. Ellen, known for playfully digging into her guests' personal lives, had asked Sandra if she had ever had a crush on Keanu during their time filming Speed. Sandra, with her signature wit and charm, confessed that she did, leading to much excitement and laughter among the audience. Later on, Ellen invited Keanu to her show and decided to play back Sandra's heartfelt confession, creating an equally amusing and heartwarming moment for viewers. During Sandra's interview, Ellen had mentioned how everyone seemed to have a crush on Keanu while filming Speed, and Sandra, with a smile, admitted, "I get it. He was sweet and so handsome." Her candid admission was met with roars of laughter from the audience. She went on to describe how she struggled to remain serious around him, often breaking into awkward giggles, not unlike a high school crush. Ellen, ever the instigator, then asked if the two had ever dated, to which Sandra humorously responded, "No, we never did," before adding with a mischievous grin, "Maybe there was something about me that Keanu didn't like." The playful back and forth between Sandra and Ellen continued, with Ellen suggesting that perhaps Keanu had been too intimidated by her. Sandra quickly dismissed the idea, humorously downplaying her intimidating presence. The audience was in stitches when Sandra jokingly demonstrated her kissing technique, prompting Ellen to quip, "Maybe that's why he didn't want to be with you," to which Sandra responded with more laughter. The story took an even more entertaining turn when Ellen played the clip for Keanu during his 2019 appearance on the show. Keanu's reaction was one of genuine surprise, as he admitted he had no idea Sandra had a crush on him. His astonishment, combined with Ellen's enthusiasm, made the moment even more enjoyable for the audience. Despite the revelation, both stars spoke fondly of each other, and fans were left to wonder about the missed opportunity for a romance between the two. But before Ellen could move on, Keanu made a surprising confession that had everyone on the edge of their seats. With a grin, he revealed, "She obviously didn't know I had a crush on her too." His unexpected admission drew an outburst of emotional applause from the audience. Ellen, equally taken aback, excitedly exclaimed, "I can't believe you both had crushes on each other and were too scared to act on it." The disbelief in her voice mirrored that of the audience, who were just as intrigued by this behind-the-scenes love story. Keanu, perhaps a bit sheepish, explained, "We were working," as though the professional atmosphere of filming had been the reason neither of them pursued their feelings. Ellen, never one to let things slide, pressed him further, asking, "But haven't you ever had a romance with someone you did a movie with?" Keanu's response was non-verbal but telling. as he made some humorous gestures that hinted he had experienced an on-set romance before. The audience, picking up on the playful hint, laughed, and Ellen, always quick on her feet, remarked, "It sounds like a yes." Keanu, with a resigned smile, nodded in agreement. Sandra Bullock and Keanu Reeves were the couple that never was. Their paths first crossed on the set of the 1994 blockbuster Speed, a film that showcased their undeniable on-screen chemistry. Despite this, they never made the leap into a romantic relationship. Over the years, they worked together again and remained close, but their relationship always stayed in the realm of deep friendship. While fans speculated and hoped, their dynamic remained platonic, with Sandra eventually marrying Jesse James and Keanu dating others. Sandra's marriage to Jesse James, however, did not have a fairy tale ending. After nearly 5 years of marriage, Sandra's world came crashing down when news of Jesse's infidelity surfaced just 2 weeks after she won an Academy Award for The Blind Side. This betrayal was a crushing blow for Sandra, who had considered Jesse her first true love after achieving fame. The public fallout was intense, and Sandra was left to navigate a very personal heartbreak in the spotlight. During this time, Keanu continued to be a supportive friend, though they never crossed the boundary into a romantic relationship. Sandra, heartbroken and devastated by Jesse's betrayal, focused on picking up the pieces of her life. Her journey of healing coincided with a major personal decision: adopting her son, Louis. Speaking about the adoption process, Sandra once said, "I just knew. This is my path," indicating that becoming a mother was her next step in finding fulfillment and happiness. Motherhood, while a blessing, brought its own challenges for Sandra. She opened up about one particularly terrifying experience when her son, Louis, suffered a grand mal seizure, leaving her in constant fear for his well-being. "You wake up panicked all day long, walking down the hallway at 2 a.m. just to check if he's still there," she shared in an emotional interview. But despite the struggles, Sandra embraced her new role as a single mother with resilience and strength. Sandra's marriage to Jesse James had ended, but her career and personal life took on new meaning as she dedicated herself to raising Louis. The audience that once saw her as America's sweetheart now admired her as a determined mother who rose above heartbreak and tragedy to find peace and purpose. As for Keanu and Sandra, their mutual admiration and strong friendship continued. Fans may always wonder what could have been had they acted on their feelings during the filming of Speed, but their lasting bond is a testament to their respect for one another. Though they never became the Hollywood couple everyone hoped for, their enduring friendship remains a beloved story in its own right, one that fans will always cherish. Sandra Bullock's journey is a testament to her strength, resilience, and the power of personal growth. Her story, spanning from the devastating betrayal she faced in her marriage to Jesse James to finding deep love with Brian Randall, illustrates the emotional turmoil that accompanies public and personal crises and the grace with which she navigated these challenges. When Bullock and Jesse James first married, their union seemed like a fairy tale to the public eye. Bullock was at the height of her career, beloved by fans for her down-to-earth persona and versatile acting talent, while James, known for his work with motorcycles and as the host of Monster Garage, appeared to complement her success. Publicly, Sandra made her affection for him clear, often praising him in interviews and at events, showing the world how devoted she was. Yet, as we later learned, even her steadfast love couldn't save their marriage. The revelations of James's infidelity were not only shocking, but humiliating for Sandra. Multiple women came forward, admitting to having affairs with him, causing a media frenzy that magnified the pain of betrayal. James's actions hurt not only Sandra, but also disappointed her fans, who had looked up to her and her seemingly perfect relationship. The divorce process was undoubtedly grueling, but Sandra's decision to stay low profile during that time spoke volumes about her dignity and strength. Rather than engage in public battles or air her grievances, she chose silence and action that many saw as a powerful display of self-respect and maturity. At this point in her life, Sandra Bullock was at the peak of her career, having just won the Academy Award for Best Actress for her performance in The Blind Side. One might have expected her to be riding a wave of happiness and professional success, but instead, she was thrust into the spotlight for all the wrong reasons. Yet, Sandra's refusal to play into the public spectacle surrounding her divorce highlighted her resilience. She did not crumble under the weight of public scrutiny or let the betrayal define her. Instead, she focused on what mattered most: her family and her personal healing. Following their divorce, Jesse James publicly admitted that his behavior was destructive, calling his actions self-sabotage. His confessions during interviews painted the picture of a man aware of his wrongdoings, but seemingly helpless to stop them. He claimed that he wanted to get caught, a statement that some interpreted as an attempt to explain the inexplicable, how someone could so recklessly destroy what appeared to be a good life. While James expressed regret and even sought rehabilitation, his attempts to justify infidelity as something that happens to both men and women, as part of life, only fueled further public outrage. Bullock's fans, loyal and protective, saw these remarks as a lack of true accountability and flooded his social media with criticism. James became the subject of intense media scrutiny, a figure both pitied and vilified. His public frustration was evident in his comments about the paparazzi, describing how he felt like a fish out of water, uncomfortable with the constant attention. In a way, he seemed to acknowledge that his marriage to Bullock, one of Hollywood's most beloved stars, had put him in a spotlight he never quite understood. Despite this, James expressed that his feelings for Sandra were genuine, even though his actions contradicted those sentiments. Sandra Bullock's journey from betrayal to finding true love is a powerful narrative of healing, resilience, and the ability to embrace life despite its many challenges. She has shown that even after great pain, it's possible to find joy, rebuild your life, and move forward with strength and grace. Her story is one that resonates with many, not just because of the celebrity factor, but because it's a reminder that we all have the capacity to overcome adversity and find happiness again. What are your thoughts on Sandra Bullock's journey from her divorce with Jesse James to finding true love with Brian Randall? Share your opinion in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content.